This is my Dumerils boa, Scruffy. He is several years old. I think about 4 years old now. And I had him since he was a baby. This is his tub. I don't use tank enclosures for Dumerils boa because they do need a little bit of humidity, about 50% of humidity. So you're going to come to notice that a lot of their husbandry is similar to what you would do for a ball python. Like humidity, you want it about 50%, 60%. Even though they're not that strict, I mean, if humidity is a little lower or higher, they seem to be okay. Whereas a ball python, they're a little bit pickier. So one of the best things about Dumeril boas and why they are so underrated is their disposition. They are very, very, very unlikely to bite. They don't even nip. Maybe he'll give you a puff of hiss here and there. He's actually a really good snake. When I take him out, he's good. He just have this really shy personality. But they're really less likely to bite. This is one of the best qualities for Dumerils boa. I can't say the same about other types of boas because I don't have them. I'm sure they're really great too. But for Dumerils boa, for the size that you get for them, they're actually smaller in size. They may reach about 5 feet, 5.5 the most. A lot of boa constrictors out there are much longer, bigger, unless you get the localities where there's, like the Hog Island boas can be a little bit smaller or about the same size. So but I'm talking about on average, the mainland boa constrictors are going to be bigger than your Dumerils boa. So if you're looking for something small, manageable, with a good personality, and if you're the type who's a little bit scared of getting bit, even by accident, the Dumerils boa is a good pet. They're really less likely to bite. They're not as food aggressive as other boas. They will eat. He eats very well. When it's time to eat, he will eat. But when it's not feeding day, he is less likely to mistake you for food versus a boa constrictor. They love to eat. They may accidentally think your hand is food. If you put your hand out there, you smell like rat and whatnot. Again, boas are not mean. I just want to make that clear. They don't do this on purpose. But if you're the type who is a little bit scared of getting bit, especially by boa, Dumerils boa generally have a calm, more gentle disposition. They're less likely to mistake you for food. They're less likely to nip, even out of defense. They rather do this. This is what he does when he wants to be left alone. This is what they'll do, for the most part. Sometimes you get that one or two Dumerils boa who's a complete crazy maniac. Personality differs. But generally, if you talk to a lot of other keepers and breeders, most of them love this disposition. That's why we love them for what they are. They are just so gentle. Let's see if I can get his head. So for enclosure, I keep him in a tub because of the humidity. I don't usually keep them in glass tanks. You can if you like. I have seen other keepers and breeders using tanks with success, or even a PVC enclosure, or make your own. That's fine. They don't need too much space. For a boa, which is pretty nice if you don't want a big snake, a 4x2 at minimum should be fine for a male. You may need a little bit bigger for a female because females are longer in size. So but generally you don't need too big of a cage for them. They do pretty well. What's most important in that tank or enclosure, whatever you choose, is you give them something to dig in. This is important. This helps them feel secure. This is what they do in the wild. They would be found on the ground, hiding underneath a lot of leaf litter, and that's where they would stay. They would stay in hidden, waiting for prey, hiding from predators. This is what feels like home for them. So you would want at least 2 to 3 or even more inches of substrate. So at least, actually, yeah, no, definitely about 3 inches should be better. 3 inches of substrate for them to dig through, feel comfortable, get secure. Same for the baby boas. As soon as they're out of quarantine, give them the substrate. Like cocoa husk is great. It's not too wet. It dries up very easily, and it's very affordable. I don't like to use cocoa fiber because it doesn't really give you as much ability to fluff up. Like this is so fluffy, so you can dig right through it. Cocoa fiber really can't do that. Once they dry up, they're pretty flat and dusty, and I think they're way too wet. So for humidity, and you don't need that much humidity. Another choice is aspen. You can also use aspen, or some people I know, they keep them in just paper towels. Some people have used Carefresh. That may be a little too dry, so you choose what works for you. As long as they feel comfortable, you give them something to hide in is preferred. There are people who do keep them in paper towels and nothing else, and they do just fine. But like I said, if you want to give them some enrichment and some security, this would be one of the better ways to do it. That this feels natural to them. It's right there. As babies, they can be picky eaters because they are so shy. They're such good snakes that they need time to settle down once you get them. So I would follow the same tips that I've provided in my last video on how to get ball pythons to eat. Similar tricks, but not as difficult. Just keep them in a smaller container, give them something to dig and burrow underneath, and give them time. And a lot of times they don't even need live prey. Once they feel comfortable enough, try frozen thawed. For Scruffy, he refused to eat for me for about 3 weeks. 3 attempts, 3 weeks. 1 attempt each week. And I think he was just insecure. So I gave him extra substrate to dig in, and I moved him to an even quieter spot in my house, and that worked. And then he took the frozen thawed mouse that I gave him, and he was good to go. After that, he just ate so well. To this day, he's still eating really good. He has a really good appetite. I feed him as an adult. He doesn't get every week. Boas should not be fed every week once they're grown to an adult size. Boas of any species, unless you have a very good reason to do it. Because boas, compared to pythons, metabolize their food a lot slower. So for Scruffy, when he didn't eat for 3 weeks, his body shape was the same. You wouldn't even know that he even starved or was hungry at all. Whereas I had a ball python who didn't eat for me for the same amount of time. His spine started to show. So while pythons can last a long time without food, boas seem to be able to go even longer than that if they're pushed to that point. So for boas, especially, they're so prone to being overfed. You don't want to feed him every week. For him, he gets fed once every 3 weeks. I don't power feed my snakes. He's a pet. He's not for breeding, so I have no reason to make him grow larger in size than he had to. So that way he stays in good shape. Once they gain weight, it's very hard to lose it, and that weight can harm them in the long run. It can shorten their lifespan. So you don't want to overfeed them. Give them enough food. And even if some boas want to eat more than you can give them, they just have to wait it out. So temperatures are a little bit different than the most other boas or other snakes that you may be known of, like king snakes and such. They don't need hot temperatures. No hotter than 85 and on a hot spot. Cool side about room temperature 75 to 77. They prefer cooler temperatures, so no higher than 85. Even 83 or 82 is good enough. They do better in cooler temperatures. He doesn't use his hides, as you see. This is why I don't bother. I have tried. They prefer to dig. So save your hides. You don't really need them unless you have a reason to use it. That's up to you. More than likely, they rather do burrow. So give them plenty of substrate to dig in. Give them enough room to stretch. Don't feed him too much. As a baby, he ate once a week. Once he grow up, they only need to eat once every 3 weeks or even 4 weeks, depending on the size of your snake and how old it is and how healthy it is. So if you have a snake that's a little bit pudgy, you may want to, extend that. So you have to make that decision for your snake. They won't starve. 3 weeks may seem a lot, but as you can see, my snake, he is not starving, okay? He eats very well. When it's feeding day, he doesn't mind. Now, if you do happen to have a Dumerils boa who is giving you a hard time to eat when you get them, there is a trick. That's a little bit different than what you would do with other snakes. That is, they like quail, except that instead of quail, you can give them baby chicks, a day-old chicks. If you have access to those are more common than quail. I think in the wild, they're more likely to eat birds because they love birds. It seems to be the chickling seems to be the trick to get them to eat. But they may also get a little bit addicted to it. So you don't want to feed too much of that. You want to make sure you add variety into it. So if you have a Dumerils boa who is being very picky, giving you a little bit of hard time, your baby boa hasn't eaten for, almost like 7 weeks now, you can try actually no, I think it'll be way too big for a baby boa. Most likely it's for adults. I don't remember. It's been so long. I didn't have that big of an issue with mine. But anyways, yes, the trick is you can use a chickling. It will get their attention. He likes it. I've fed chicklings to him to vary his diet. He loves them. So I try not to give them too much to him. I just give it to him as a treat now and then. But I've heard from other keepers, they use them to get them off any hunger strikes they may be on for some reason. Like if you bought a brand new adult Dumeril boa and she's not eating for you, you can try that trick. Just give them a day-old chickling and see if that gets her going. And for Scruffy, for Dumerils boa, they're actually from Madagascar. There is another species of snake, the ground boa, the Madagascar ground boa, which looks similar to the Dumerils boa, and they've been mistaken by a lot of people thinking they're the same species when they're not. The pattern is different. You can see the pattern of a Dumerils boa looks like as a circle and a plus. There's a minus sign and a circle. You can see this. The pattern is definitely different. If you look at a picture of a Madagascar ground boa, the patterning is different. They don't have the same shape. Even though they have a similar shade of brown, they're not the same pattern, not the same species, and they are bigger. They are longer, bigger, and I've heard their disposition is a lot nastier. I don't know. I've never seen one in the pet trade yet. I'm sure they are around. I've seen them 1 or 2 on sale online, but they usually get picked up very quickly. So they're not very common, the Madagascar ground boa. So if you do see one and you're interested, you may want to look more into it. But generally, the Dumerils boa is what's available in the market. And even then, they are not commonly available. And in fact, the prices has gone up for this species. It used to be in the past, I purchased them for about $250. No, way less. I picked them up for $175. I picked them up for about $175 or even less than that. It was so long ago. Now for the same age, they are charging a lot of money. I've seen prices go up to $250 for the same baby Dumerils boa. Adults can even be priced higher. I've heard that the reason for the high pricing is because Madagascar has closed their doors, so they're no longer exporting any animals out, so the prices has gone up. So that could explain why. Also because there's an increase of interest into this species. People are starting to notice how cool they are. They're pretty good snakes to have. They're not too big. They have a really calm personality. You notice how he's not once tried to do anything. And he's a good snake. He's just not outgoing. He doesn't really care to be picked up and held. But he's not gonna lash out at me for bothering him. And they don't grow too big either. So they're really cool. The colors are so pretty. For Dumerils boa, there are currently no known morphs. What they go by is bloodline, meaning they go by the coloring. The reddish coloring, sometimes some of the baby boas or boas will have. They try to focus on that by breeding them and making the colors more red. So the prices can go up. The price will go up depending on how red or the bloodline is for that Dumerils boa. But you're not gonna find snow Dumeril boa or any other designer morphs at this time. I'm sure they're working on it, but at this time, as far as I know, nobody has found a morph or created a morph for the Dumerils boa. So I think I'm just gonna end the video here. In summary, they're very easy to care for. You don't need a super big cage. Cooler temperatures, need to eat only once in a while, very calm, very docile snake. A little bit on the shy side, could be a little bit difficult to eat at the beginning. Otherwise, they're really good snake. I wish more people, even though the increase in interest is there, I wish more and more people get into Dumerils boa. Because you're missing out. They're really, really good snake, and you're missing out. I'm sure other boas are great too, but the Dumerils boa just don't get the same amount of attention. And if you wonder why I don't really pick up my snakes in my videos, is because I don't like to bother them. If I know their personalities, if I feel like they don't like to be held for too long, or they get stressed, there's no point. I'm not gonna prop them up or anything. They're snakes after all. They're not puppies and kittens or toys. So if my snake is not comfortable being picked up for a long period of time, like right now the video will be over 10 minutes, I would have to hold him for 10 minutes, hold him still for 10 minutes, and he may not like that, and that'd be way too stressful for him. So if I know my snake to be like that, I'm not going to pick him up.